Namaskar and welcome to the Eikam series Gita on the Go. The last time when we discussed chapter 8, we spoke about the nature of the consciousness. What is the consciousness? How do we step into the consciousness? What is it that we need to do in terms of not just achieving or attaining the consciousness, but becoming one with the Brahman? Now, as we step into chapter 9, which is the Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga, we actually delve even deeper into the nature of the consciousness and achieving it. However, then you will discover that in the very name itself is the tantalizing mystery of that which is the Brahman, that which is the consciousness. The fact that it is Raja Vidya. It is royal knowledge, and royal perhaps does not do justice to the vastness and the glory and the bigness of the Raja Vidya. It is the ultimate Vidya. It is the large Vidya. It is the royal Vidya. And along with that is Raja Guhya. It's also the biggest secret. It is something that is mysterious and undiscovered and explained but not retained. And therefore, as we explore chapter 9, we will speak further on what this knowledge is, why it really is a secret, how do we open and how is the secret revealed and explained to us, and therefore, what is it that we need to do, what is it that we can offer to receive, retain, and stay with this knowledge. With that, we welcome you once again to the Eikam series Gita on the Go as we explore chapter 9, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, and we welcome with us once again Samir. How are you, Samir? Good to have you.
Thank you very much. Namaskar. Can I explain that Raja Guhya a little bit more?
Of course, that's why we have you.
So, Guhya obviously means secret. The reason it's a secret is not only because it's difficult to transmit or whatever, but it's also very difficult to explain to somebody, experiential point of view. If I ask you to explain to me the sound of a sitar or the smell of a rose or the taste of honey, which I haven't had before,
Yes.
You will find it extremely difficult, and hence it's very guhya. It's very secret, right? But you can help me experience it, right? By giving me the honey, making me listen. So Krishna is actually going to do that with us in this particular chapter. You see, he takes us to that point where if we put in that last bit of effort, we experience it ourselves. And hence it is also the Raja Vidya. So it's such a very interesting way of presentation.
Yes.
I also always think that Sri Krishna is one of the best communicators. We should learn communication from him.
Do you want to tell us therefore? So, what is it that Sri Krishna wants us, the Arjuna, to experience and know?
So the first principle he's already talked about in the last chapter, right? He has told us very clearly that there is an unchanging, eternal, timeless substratum on which all this change is happening. Now you've been using a lot of scientific jargon. I'm not a science guy, so a lot of scientific jargon. But one very simple thing, if you want to experience or understand or see change, it has to be measured against a constant.
Yes.
You've seen and experienced change in yourself, in your body, in your mind, in your intellect,
Yes.
throughout your entire life,
Yes.
right? You were smaller, you've grown bigger, you wake up happy, and then you suddenly remember the bad day you're going to have with your boss or whatever else, and you have a bad emotion. You were, when you were younger, or at least I was, I was a communist, right? And then you became a capitalist.
Then we grew up.
And then we grew up and we become a capitalist. And then you realize that all these isms don't work. All of this was in my body, in my mind,
Yes.
and in my intellect. But what was the constant against which all these changes were being seen? My sense of I. That was the constant. Nothing else was constant. That constant I that permeates this entire universe is what he says is Brahman.
And that is why when we studied the Brahman, or when we spoke of the Brahman earlier, when Sri Krishna gave us that knowledge, it was the Akshara Brahman.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Now, let's assume. So, what does this by definition mean? It means that you are divine
I am that.
because you are that. So am I.
You are that. I am that.
Correct? But have you and I strived hard enough to live in that experience of I am that throughout? Most probably not.
We do it every time that we have a conversation, Samir.
Yes, and then the moment the next cup of coffee comes, or my favorite, the Rasagulla comes, we are back to normal, isn't it? But there are people who have strived and attained that state of being, which is where Krishna is. Which is why we say Krishna, Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Right? Not the body, not the physical mind, not the intellect, but that essence of what he is, manifested in a way in which I can interact with it, is what is a divine person.
Samir, when I experience the divine, I can still only experience and engage through my sharira, through my manasa, and through my viveka, through my buddhi, right? So, even when I experience the Brahman, even as I consume Bhagwan Sri Krishna, aren't I still limited by the only ways in which I know how to experience?
So, such a very nice question. See, the way you phrase the question itself has the answer. You experience through the body.
Yes.
Right? But right now, your experience is you are the body. Now, you changed, even in your words, you changed because, like Arjuna, along this conversation, we both have evolved. And what has happened is, we are now saying the body is an instrument. The mind is an instrument. I am no longer the body. I am no longer the mind. I am no longer the intellect. I am seeing them as instruments that I can use to become unlimited. Now, when that happens, can I use an analogy to explain
Yes,
this?
please.
We talked about the ocean and the drop of water,
Yes.
right? Now let's look at Krishna, and I don't want to name any of the realized masters that we have read about, some of us have experienced in our day-to-day lives, and I have been very fortunate there. But is that each of us is like a wave on an immense ocean.
Yes.
The sum total of this ocean, of all the waves, is much smaller than the ocean.
Yes.
This ocean then
Yes.
is what we call Ishvara. Ishvara is that unlimited and yet by self-volition limited to the ability to interact. So when you have a realized master, as we call them, this is a person who has strived. He started like you and I, worked through this entire limitation of body, mind, intellect, reached a point, and when you said experience Bhagwan, experience, you see, that is the only point where that knowledge transforms you. You studied commerce, for example.
Yes.
Did you become commerce? That's a stupid question. Right?
Yes.
I studied law. Did I become law? No. Right? You may study medicine. Do you become medicine? No, you become a doctor who practices medicine.
Yes.
But when you study Brahman,
Yes.
you become Brahman. Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. Such a beautiful thing. You become Brahman. It's like a touchstone. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa uses a beautiful example. He says, you have reached that, suppose there is this lake of Amrita, and there is a bird. How will the bird drink that Amrita? And all his disciples said, oh, it will come to the side and it will peck at the water. And he started laughing and he said, it is Amrita. Jump in, you can't die because you will become immortal. So he who knows will become immortal. So says the Veda. Immortal doesn't mean physically immortal.
Obviously.
You will become what has been unchanging. So this beautiful thing is when you see people have this objection to saying, how can a human being be divine? The essence is that each of us is divine.
In fact, I will extend that logic to say, why just a human being? Every bird, every plant, every flower,
Absolutely.
everything that has,
Except that
that expresses or manifests the Brahman.
Yes, except that the human has a developed intellect and therefore can express that at a far higher level, at a far more radiating level than perhaps the stone. Again, to use Bhagwan Sri Ramakrishna's example, somebody came to him and said, how can a stone be God? So he said, do you believe that God is omnipotent? He said, yes. Then how can you limit his power to become stone? So you are so right
But
here.
he's also God. Or
Yes, so are you. But the only difference is he strived, he transformed.
you know, Samir, I can actually see why this is a Raja Guhya.
Yes.
I understand it's Raja Vidya, but I can see why it's Raja Guhya because it really is so difficult to both receive and comprehend, and certainly impossible to hold on to, because when I'm experiencing consciousness, I am consciousness. I am the
Correct.
Brahman. I get that.
Correct.
Having said that, even to realize that this is Brahman, this is that eternal Satya, the eternal Sat actually, the benchmark against which I measure it is my daily life, right? I know that I am experiencing the Brahman only when I'm able to also differentiate it.
So actually we are limited by our words, right? Because
And
our experiences can't be expressed in words.
No.
And hence we are limited here. Once you have experienced Brahman, there is no coming back. And you are Brahman. And that makes you manifest this divinity in its entirety.
Like the bird on the shores of Amrita,
Yes.
in my present form, shape, avatar, limited by my kshetra, jati, kal, etc., I only know how to peck and take these little sips while sitting on the shore. That's what I know now. However, where and how do I get myself to dive into this Amrita?
So you know what? At some point, we have to take a leap of faith. And he says, declares. Again, sometimes, Krishna comes out and makes such huge declarations. And he says, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. I will take care of what you do not have, and I will protect what you already have. Yoga Kshem. In chapter 2, verse 45, he actually told Arjuna, Nir Yoga Kshema Bhava.
Yes, I remember.
Now, and he's saying, so this is so clearly connected. He says, don't try to go around running after what you don't have and try and protect what you have because it's not yours. Right? But now, he says, if you are going to really dedicate yourself into striving to find out what is the secret, I will provide. You don't have to. It will come. So we take that leap of faith and we do what he told us in chapter 8, and we sit down and we start contemplating, and then we live our daily life, in that spirit of working with full body, mind, intellect, dedicated, with complete involvement and zero attachment.
Clearly, we are talking about a lot of brands that seem to have been inspired from Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham and the
Yes.
brand we know. It takes me to the other brand where we always hear, Dar ke aage jeet hai, right? And I have experienced this, Samir, in my own life. And we spoke about it earlier, especially when we were talking about chapters, the first phase of Thwam, where I realized that the fear that was holding me back, or the fear that I held dearest to myself, was approval seeking, was people validation. I needed you to think that I was cool, and I needed you to respect me for being who I am, right? And I remember at some point of time, I realized that actually that's not me. It is in me, but it's not me. And that journey happened where I realized that actually deep inside me, I don't care what people think. So the knowledge happened. I could see that lake there. The fear that then held me back, Samir, was not knowing any better, not knowing anything else. So my fear was that if I let go of this approval seeking and people validation, then I will become rude and obnoxious and selfish. I don't know any other way, right? It took a lot of practice, again, to actually dive in. What I discovered in that journey, and the Bhagwad Gita was, and the Mandukya Upanishad and the Chandogya Yoga Upanishad were very, very, very close to me in that journey, and that's where I learned from and gathered the courage. What I realized is that when I actually let go of this fear of approval seeking and validation, contrary to becoming rude and selfish and obnoxious, it allowed me to truly love. Then I didn't need to love you for you to love me back. I didn't need your love. It was so liberating in its own way, that where I could say I love you to you without expecting to hear it back. And the biggest thing was that I realized that it liberated me enough from being in love to a state of love. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course it does. Let me expand that from a Tvam to a Tat, right? The acceptance of everything that is there as it is, and me living in that, doing my duty to the full extent of all my faculties, is the role model that he preaches in front of us. Yet, he also brings in this concept where he says, so there are some who manifest this universality. Such people we have revered as gurus. Krishna stands there not as a physical body, but as a guru, as a teacher, who's manifesting this eternal reality in a physical form. Now, let me go back again. We looked at the wave. In technical terms, the wave is nothing but the Jivatma.
Yes.
The sum total of the Jivatmas, they all rise from the ocean and merge into it.
Yes.
This is Ishvara. But what is Ishvara himself or herself, whatever, itself, comprised of water.
Yes.
Right? The formless.
Yes.
The that which can take any form, that which has expanded into the entire ocean and beyond.
Yes.
Now, if I look at this is Jivatma, Ishvara, Brahman. And we see that every day. Right? So when we see something around us, do we experience it and see it as a manifestation of that universal law, universal spirit, the Rita that we are talking about? Do we see it as a manifestation of that? Do we see it as a manifestation of Sat, of consciousness? Such a person who does that is deemed to be divine. We are all there.
Yes.
He manifests divinity.
Yes.
And in him, how did that happen? Because Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam, he provided. And the reason for providing, body, mind, intellect completely involved.
So if this Raja Vidya, which is the Raja Guhya, it is the divinest of divine mysteries and secrets that Bhagwan Sri Krishna says will make available, open, provide to you, as long as, there must be something that I need to do for this, right?
Yes, as long as you are limited, As long as you're limited by your body, your mind, your intellect, identification, you need to do something.
Yes. And
so there is this beautiful story. A particular Swamiji was sitting in his ashram, and a devotee came and offered 2 beautiful large hibiscus flowers at his feet. So the Swamiji looked at the flowers and said, very beautiful flowers. He picked them up and he put them on the side, and he said, where did you get them from? The devotee very sheepishly smiled and said, from your garden. The Swamiji laughed and said, जो मेरा है मुझे दे रहे हो. And here's the teaching. He said, तेरा जो है वो तू देने को तैयार है क्या? So what is it that I own? My ego. Am I ready to offer that? And that requires 3 things. It requires faith, right? It requires what is called Shraddha, which is where that leap of faith happens. It requires Bhakti, right? Sri Krishna will explain Bhakti much more in detail, but at this point of time, let's not understand it as ritual, but let's look at it as devotion.
Surrender.
Of the ego.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, and all of this has to be done with Yuktva Atmanam. He uses the word with dedication, right? With complete dedication. So when we do that surrender of ego with faith, with devotion, with dedication, that's the method, that's the path.
Samir, we've spoken of dedication. Bhagwan Sri Krishna has spoken of dedication across multiple chapters.
Correct.
That's how the whole Bhagwad Gita conversation started.
Right.
With Bhagwanji telling Arjun ki tum karo na. Matlab, do what you need to do and do it with all of yourself. So we've spoken of dedication in the context of dharma, we've spoken in the context of duty, we've spoken about the whole idea of seeing it as a yajna. We've spoken about it in the context of tat, that it needs you to again surrender, right? So practice consistent. In fact, that was one of the dhyana teachings that Bhagwan Sri Krishna had given. So dedication we've spoken of, and in very many ways we've also spoken of faith, Shraddha, and therefore trusting the process, which we've spoken about in the context of karma as well.
Correct.
It is this idea of bhakti, of surrender, of devotion that I'm finding slightly hard to comprehend, especially in the context of, and you spoke about it earlier, the fact that the Bhagwad Gita is such a personal and real text, right? All of the first part of the Bhagwad Gita was about the Tvam. It's all about engaging with yourself, your mind, your body, your intellect, your insecurities, your fears, your dharma, your karma. We've been talking about your own self, which is very real, very tangible, including my emotions, right? And then we've been speaking about the nature of the cosmos, how it works, the universe, the principles on which it operates, the nature that it carries. And all of these seem to find their space in both dedication as well as in faith. What I'm perhaps struggling slightly to comprehend is this aspect of devotion, of the Ishvara, of surrender, of bhakti. And maybe we will cover that soon.
So, Eika, you see, there is a reason for your confusion. See, the way bhakti has been interpreted popularly, and you have seen that chapter 2, verse 47, so badly interpreted.
Yes.
Is that when we look at the word bhakti, what comes to our mind is to sit down with khol, kartal, right? Have an image in front, and you
start the
satsang, and especially if you have certain denominations that have propounded that bhakti means that alone. These are not very ironclad definitions, number one. Number two, bhakti, when I say I am devoted, does it mean that I have surrendered? Not necessary, right? I am devoted to my cat. Does that mean I've surrendered to my cat?
Yes.
All it means is...
For your cat, yes.
all it means is that I know that the needs of the cat have to be put before my own smaller personal needs. So I take care of it, I make sure that it is fed properly, and so on and so forth. What does this mean in the larger construct of Tat? It means that I have to be true to myself. And what am I? I am that individual Jivatma, constrained by my body, mind, intellect. To be true to myself, to put my real needs in front of that, is to become unfettered. And the path to that is to be devoted to that bigger concept called Brahman.
Which is what we will now be doing when we get into chapter 10.
And which is why, if you look at chapter 12,
yes,
which is where Sri Krishna then explains bhakti. And it comes only after the whole series of chapter 10 and 11 of seeing him in all things and then seeing all things in him has gone through. And only then can my understanding of devotion become blossom up. Till then, you are constrained by, ritual. But bhakti is not ritual.
And therefore, as we continue to explore and discover more of bhakti when we do Bhakti Yoga in chapter 12, we have explored in chapter 9, in the Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga, those little tantalizing nibbling at the edges of the Brahman, its nature, its eternality, and yet the rahasya, the secret, the mystery of its ephermality. We step in, we step out. We experience, we try, we reach, and then we're not sure how we want to continue because our sensorial engagement, our world, our here and now, our ego takes over. And therefore, that is when Bhagwan Sri Krishna says, have faith and I will provide. If you so commit to your journey in faith, in devotion, and in dedication, I will provide. I will help you overcome your fears, your limitations, of the limitations of your senses, the limitations of your body, your mind, your intellect, the limitations of the material world that you are made of and that is in you. I will provide. I will help you beyond that, to reach beyond and dive into that beautiful, eternal Anand of the Brahman. And therefore, as we explore ourselves in our full unrealized potential and dive into that glorious Anand of the Brahman, of that consciousness which abides in us and becomes one with the Brahman, please continue to join us on the Eikam series, Gita on the Go. Namaskar.
Iti Srimad Bhagwad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga Nama Navamodhyayah. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Na 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 na